We continue now at the top of Daf Nun Daled Amud Beis in Meseches Nazir. This is Nazir Daf 54b. The Mishnah is continuing to discuss the halachas of cases of Nazirus where there's tumah, where the tumah does not cause the Nazir to have to shave. And so in these cases, v'eno soser sakodmim, it's also not going to undo any days that the Nazir counted before the tumah, even though the count is suspended while the Nazir is purifying himself, but it's not going to undo the previous count. Umaschil umona miyad v'korban einlo, and then he could begin, once he's pure, he can begin counting again, resuming his count of Nazirus, and he doesn't have to bring a carbon for tumah in these situations. And the Mishnah continues, Be'emes amru, in truth they said, Yemei hazava v'hazava, the days of zav and zava, when the person is tameh, let's say the Nazir is tameh with tumas that emitted emissions from his body, V'yemei hezgero shel mitzorah, and also the days of hezger of a mitzorah, that's the days that the mitzorah is being evaluated for the tumah, Harei elu olin lo, those days do count towards his count of Nazirus. And Tosas explained, Ve'eno soser sakodmim, these kinds of tumas do not undo the previous count. V'gamein olin lo leminyan Nazirus, but the days that he's tameh, it also doesn't count towards the Nazirus. It doesn't start everything over, but they don't count towards the Nazirus either. Umaschil umon miyad, then when he's pure, he can continue to count immediately. B'makom shepasak limnos, he can resume the count from where he left off. Kishenitma, when he became tameh. Lo yaschil limnos sheyimei tumah ein olin lo limei Nazirus, again, so he can't count the days of tumah themselves. They don't count. V'gam karban shenazir tameh mevi, and also the carbon that a general Nazir tameh brings, chatos v'olas ofa asham ze'eno mevi. Normally the Nazir who becomes tameh brings a chatos and an ola and an asham. This particular individual with these kinds of tumas does not have to bring that carbon. V'kasha l'rashi de b'shlama kulhon nicha, and the Tosas asks, we understand all of these cases, d'chinami eno soser akodmin eno olin lo, that we say it doesn't undo the previous count, but also the days don't count towards the Nazirus, except for one case in the Mishnah is difficult. Now, the Kalim hanogim b'meis, the case in the Mishnah of Kalim, the touch of mace, ta'afilu klishet of kamar kedemash Gemara, because we are talking even about klishet of Kalim that can be immersed, as it is implied in the Gemara, when the Nazir touches those kind of Kalim, he's only tameh a tumah for the evening, so why shouldn't those days count towards the Nazirus? And Tosas continue, let's say you have a Nazir who started counting Manasseh Zav and he becomes a Zav, V'yimei haskero, in the days of confinement of Mitzorah, Shaporcha bot saras, that he has saras, V'hizkero so HaKohen, and the Kohen puts him in confinement, V'amad be'enav okeya, and then either the saras continues or it weakens, Olin lo limei Nazirus. So really those days of confinement and the days of Zav and Zava, those really should count towards the days of Nazirus. And Rashi explains, Ve'emes amru halacha hi l'Moshe misinai, it's a halacha l'Moshe misinai, Yemei hazav hazav v'yemei hasger shel mitzorah, that these days of Zav, Zava, and the confinement days of Mitzorah, Yamim harishonim, that's the first days of Mitzorah, Shekasav ben v'hisker HaKohen shivas Yamim, the Kohen puts them into confinement for 7 days, Uchsiv v'hizgiru HaKohen shivas Yamim shenis, and then another 7 days, Olin lo miminyan yemei Nazirus, so those days should count towards the days of his Nazirus. L'kavan mefarish mehecha gomer, and later on the Gemara will explain where this is learned from. And the Gemara says, V'yelu ben haschachos, what is schachos that's referred to in the Mishnah? That's like we said, Ilan ha-mesach ala aretz, it refers to a tree, branches that overhang the ground. Upros hayotzas min hageder, and what's pros? That refers to the stones, the overhanging stones. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, V'yeretz ha'amim, also the land outside of Eretz Yisrael is tamei. Iboilahu, they asked the following question, Eretz ha'amim, this land outside of Eretz Yisrael, Mishum avira gazru eleh, did they make a gezerah that it's tamei due to the airspace? Odilma mishum gusha gazru eleh, or was it the earth itself, that there's a gezerah regarding the earth itself? Rashi explains, Iboilu eretz ha'amim mishum avira nami gazru, what it means is, did they also make a gezerah on the airspace? Ve'echadika avira below gusha. What they're asking is, let's say you have a situation where the person is in the air of eretz ha'amim, but he's not touching the actual earth, or he's not creating an ohel over the actual earth. Kagon de nichnas ba v'korono b'sfina, for example, you enter either in a wagon or a boat, shalo pasal la'aretz, he hasn't actually stepped on the earth, ala nichnas ba ba'avira, he's only in the airspace, so kalish le'tumah, that would be a lighter kind of tumah. Odilma mishum gusher, maybe it's only the earth of Eretz ha'amim. The tumah chamurahu, that's already a stronger tumah. The gazru aleh, that they made a gzeira on it. V'lo mishum avira, but they didn't say that there's a gzeira on the airspace. The hainu tumah kala, that would be a lighter tumah. V'im nichnas ba beraglav command naga bekever dummy. So if you, let's say, walk on it, so it's as if you touched a kever, aval bekaron lo. But if the person would go in a wagon, then he would not have that kind of tumah. So that's the question of the Gemara, is there a gzeira on the avir or not? Tashma, the Gemara says, come in here the following proof. The Mishnah said, Umaza b'shlishu v'shvi, that Eretz ha'amim was among the cases in the Mishnah, and it said he has to sprinkle on the third and seventh day, you need that purification, the 7-day purification process. V'yamrin mishum avira. Now, if the case over here is the airspace, hazah lamali, why would you need sprinkling? Would we really go so far as to say that the avir would require hazah? Rashi over here explains, V'i amr mishum avira hechadika avira below gusha. If you have a situation of airspace and there is no actual earth, would we treat that so strictly to tiboy hazah shlishi ushvi that we would say that the person needs to be sprinkled on the third and seventh day? That would not make sense. And the Gemara continues, Elalav, rather is it not Mishum Gusha? Can we conclude from the Mishnah that the Gezer in Eretz Amim is only because of the earth of Eretz Amim? And the Gemara says to that, Lo, no, Liolamei Malach, really I'll say to you, Mishum Avir, there is a Gezer on the airspace of Eretz Amim, V'chikatani, and when does the Mishnah say that the person has to sprinkle the third and seventh day, that the Nazir has to have the 7-day purification? Ashar, it's going on the other cases of the Mishnah. It might not be going on every case of the Mishnah, maybe it's not going on Eretz Amim. And the Gemara says, Hachinam Mistabra, it makes sense to say this, Midakatani v'kelam hanogim b'meis, because there's another case in the Mishnah of kelam hanogim b'meis, the Nazir touches vessels that touched a dead body. So hani kelam b'nei hazah inun, are you going to say that if he touches these vessels, so he has to sprinkle, go through a 7-day purification process? That's not true. So you see that the Mishnah is really going on the other cases. Not every single case in the Mishnah is the Nazir going to have to go through a 7-day purification. And Rashi explains, V'hani kelam b'nei hazah ninu, when it comes to vessels, would the Nazir have to go through a 7-day purification with sprinkling? Kolomar, Nazir b'kelam hanogim b'meis. If a Nazir touches kelam, the touch of mace, tzarech hazah, do you really think there's a requirement of hazah? Bitmiya, that would be a wonder. Lalav shmamino lava kulakai. Rather, you see, when it says that he sprinkles the third and the 7th day, it's not going on every case in the Mishnah. It's just going on the kinds of tumah which require sprinkling, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Nun Hey Amud Aleph.